فقرة اليوم عندنا سبيشال جيست كثير جايين من برا السعودية بيشاركونا خبراتهم وتجاربهم. أول متحدث اليوم حيكون ماثياس مانقليس. عنده خبرة مستشار وخبير في التخطيط الاستراتيجي وإدارة الاستراتيجيات، عنده أكثر من 35 سنة خبرة في هذا المجال، جاي خصيصا من ألمانيا للمشاركة في ملتقى التميز المؤسسي، وراح يتكلم عن موضوع من الاستراتيجية إلى النتائج، كيف يمكنك القيام بها. Ladies and gentlemen, our first special guest, he came from Germany last night to participate with us in this big event. He has more than 35 years experience in strategy management, strategy planning. So he is going to talk about from strategy to results, how can we achieve this? Please welcome with me Mr. Matthias Mangels.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. So it's a great pleasure being with you this morning. I hope that you all can bear with me your attention in this early morning for an hour, not that much, half an hour. My topic is strategy. So we have been working on the strategy area for many years. Myself, over 30 years in more than 20 countries, supporting organizations from the private and public sector. And they all say the same. It's so hard. It's so difficult. How can we really generate results, big results, out of our thinking where we're going to the future? Our thinking of how we will create value to our organizations. So organizations all over the world struggle with this theme. How can we generate results out of our strategies? Let's just, in a nutshell, think a little bit about a strategy. So strategy is around, say, looking into the future, creating value into the future for our organizations, optimizing the resources we have. So we all have scarce resources, not that much, okay? Our, say, resources from the human capital, our resources from the financial means that we have, they're always restricted. So good management, you as good executives of your organizations, your big challenge is with little resources, create maximum value for your organizations. So that's the challenge that we have. And organizations say, we try our best, we think about our strategy, but we really often lay down and think that it's a hard job. It's a real challenge. So what I would like to say, exchange with you this morning is a little bit our thinkings around what organizations could do to perform better, to really, say, out of the, say, strategic thinking, really create tangible results. So what can we do within our organizations to get there? There are sort of 4 topics that I would like to cover with you. These 4 topics, they are the topics that we see as topics that very often organizations discuss when they are frustrated. When they sit on the bench on that last slide, when they are frustrated, they discuss perhaps 4 topics. The first topic that we see organizations discussing is, do we have a good strategy? So we can discuss day and night, we can do, say, excursions to Dubai, to different resorts in Saudi Arabia, discuss 2, 3, 4 days, a month, several months, our strategy. Is it a good strategy? Do we have something that we really believe in? Is this really a strategy that will take us further? So that's a big thinking and a big issue that people have, executives have around strategy. The second one is, what's the content of the strategy? When we think about the details of a strategy, when we design a strategy, at the end, we want to execute it. So the final operational content of a strategy, organizations really struggle in putting it in the right framework, putting it in the right way so that after this weekend, on Sunday morning, after the strategy session, your organization is ready to execute the strategy. So it looks like many organizations, they struggle not only in finding the right strategy, but they also struggle to, say, understand what they can do to execute it properly, in the sense of how can you make it very tangible. The third important, say, issue that we see many organizations discussing is it looks like strategy is always changing. It always changes. So strategy is a hypothesis that we have to manage. So there is the learning process, you know, behind strategy. So we design a strategy, we print out this wonderful book, you know, this book of our organization strategy, and then just a quarter, 2 quarters later, we just start discussing it and optimizing it, doing it and optimizing whatever has to be changed. So a strategy is a hypothesis, we need the learning process behind it. So organizations really struggle with this idea. We invest so much into a strategy and then we change it over time. Okay, so there's a learning process. And last but not least, strategy, many organizations look at it and see that strategies, they will make changes in the organization. And we as humankind, we don't like to change, do we? We get in the morning to the office, 8 o'clock into the office, 8:30. We sit, we stamp, we work, you know. If somebody comes and says, no stamping anymore, finish stamping. Say, no, I want to stamp, you know. So we don't like to change. So strategy is about change. It's about doing things better. It's about, say, being more competitive, being more efficient. It's being more focused. So it has to do with change. So we need you. We need you as leaders of your organizations. You have to drive your strategy. Otherwise, it will never work. So that's another important issue that we see organizations struggling. If we have some time at the end, we have a discussion also, I hope, on some Q&A. So that's my agenda that I am proposing here. The topics, the 4, say, important topics that we see organizations running. So the first one is about strategy. And perhaps the big issue here is how can we put strategy, or how can we evaluate a good strategy? What should be behind a good strategy? What are important issues that should be presented, you know, within the strategy? We see here 5 important, say, topics that could, say, qualify a strategy for being a good strategy. It's a good check if the strategy is good, but it's also a good check to see if the strategy can be executed. You know, so when we think about, well, strategies, is our strategy good? Can we do anything better around this, and so on? Perhaps these questions can help you and your organizations to check, is our strategy really working, helping our organization? First important thing, do we have an aspiration? Let's remember, strategy is about, we are here, this is point A, where we are today, and we want to go somewhere into the future, into a higher creating value situation. So point B, point A, point B. So the first important thing we see organizations looking into is, what's our aspiration? Where are we going? So we are going to the future. What's point B? Where are we going? Is it clear? Can we quantify it? Can we understand it? So it looks like good strategies or powerful strategies, they have, yes, very clearly, where is the journey going? Second important thing, it's not only about where we are going, it's about where are we playing? What's our playground? So I'm Ministry of Interior. If, as a Minister of Interior, what is my mission, my extended mission, my strategy is focusing to be good where? Which interior issues should I focus on? So my strategy has to have a focus. So I have to understand very clearly, where is my playground? Okay? So strategy is about a focus of where is the strategy to be played around. The third important thing is, okay, this is point B, this is the future where I'm going. This is where I'm playing, okay? So the big question there is, how will I win the battle? There's the battle to be at this future stage B with efficient resources, as we said, in an optimized way. So how will we win? Is it clear? Is it clear the way we are going to win our battles? How we're going to get as quickly and efficient as possible to point B? Is that clear? Well, to get there, and with the speedy developments, we often need competencies. You know, so which capabilities do I have to develop? What competencies does my organization need? What muscles, you know, need my organization to, say, get as quickly as possible to this point B? Okay, so that looks like a very important thing. Last but not least, I mean, strategy is a hypothesis, as said, so do we have a management system that will support this, that will support the execution? We'll have to optimize constantly our strategy. So what is the management system behind? So a winning strategy, a strategy that really is successful, looks like having these components. Let me give you, say, perhaps two examples, one of the private sector and one of the public sector. Lexus. Who knows Lexus? I mean, is this a common car in Saudi Arabia? Please raise your hand. Lexus is a car you know, huh? It's a car that you know in Saudi Arabia, okay? So Lexus, 30 years ago, was nothing. So Toyota was thinking about what Toyota could do better around, say, bringing cars into the market, the global markets. And so Toyota thought, you know, there's the opportunity. We have all these Cadillacs and Buicks, you know, as luxury cars. And then we have these damn Germans, you know, these BMWs and Mercedes and all these somewhere here. Okay, so they said, we have all these very expensive cars and Mercedes here. We have Cadillacs and Buicks up here. You know, there is something in the middle that we could say, just jump in, couldn't we? That could be an opportunity. So they saw this middle space and said, let's step in there. Let's go into there. So that was sort of the thinking of Lexus. So going through those four or five, say, questions. The first one, what's the aspiration? The aspiration you see here on the slide, you see a BMW, okay? Drive in front of BMW, okay? So find a way, the aspiration was, we are going to be a winning car in front of BMWs. We are going to be a luxury car. We're going to be a very luxury car. We are going to be very successful in this luxury car business. We are going to take over the market, dominate the market, have the biggest market share in luxury cars. So the aspiration was very clear. In the middle of both, and with high technology, high, say product features, and dominate the market. So, okay, so where do we play? Where do we play? Second important questions around strategy. So they said, okay, we're going to play, yes, in luxury cars, but we're going to play in high-tech cars. So we need really to have the highest technology in our car, the best technologies available. So we're going to play in the high end with best technologies. Technologies during those days were available. You could buy all components, electronic components, hydraulic components, and so on. So they said, we are going to put this in there. Where do we play? They thought about, well, where can we start from the geography point of view? So they said, USA, big market, big opportunities. Americans are looking for new opportunities on new cars, new options for their Cadillacs. So let's go to the US. Let's start there. So where do we play? In the US. So you see how the strategy from the aspiration gets sort of tweaked, optimized. They thought a little bit more, okay, how will we win? What do we have to do to win this game? So they said, number one, very important, we have to be customer-centric. We have to live the issues. We have to live the challenges that our customers have. So let's think about customers. Customers are key, so very customer-centric. So we're going to win against GM and Ford and all these Europeans if we really think first around our customers. Number two, we are going to win because we are going to embed these technologies into the car the best way with the best quality. It's about technology and it's about best quality. So we're going to win because we dominate the technologies. Perhaps it won't be the farthest front of technology, but the best technology with the best quality. So they said, let's think about the technology that we are using. Last but not least, they said, it's about service. Okay? So to win, we have to be excellent in service. So whatever service we need. What is the first service that you need? The dealership. So we're going to focus on our dealership. So dealers' exceptional service from the sales till the final, say, automotive services was key for them. So they said, this is, say, our, say, strategy around how we will win. They said, well, okay, and what are the key capabilities to win? What is the strategy on capabilities? So it's easy to think around this now. It's technology-centric. So all latest technology that you need, they had to dominate. They said we have to learn them very fast. It's about marketing. It's about branding. So they thought, well, it's about marketing and branding. We have to be very good in marketing and branding. So that will be our differentiation. And it has to be very good in understanding the dealers, what the dealers are doing and what they need to be successful. Okay? So here you see an example of an organization that within not more than 3 years, 4 years, dominated the US luxury car business with a very clear strategy, very clear aspiration, very clear, say, focus where they wanted to play, very clear, say, strategy how to dominate the market, where to dominate the market, and last but not least, creating the capabilities to really sustain the strategy, to support the strategy over time. A second example now for the public sector. CNI. CNI is a confederation of industry. So this is like the Ministry of Industry, okay? It's the Brazilian Ministry of Industry. 7 years ago, this confederation came together and said, we are, as a nation, we are out of business. We have no productivity. We have big difficulties to evolve as a nation, as an exporting nation, because we do not have a clear strategy how to go forward. So what did they do? They said, well, we need an aspiration, okay? Back to aspiration, okay? What do we want to reach within the next 5 to 10 years? So they said, yes, we want to have a GNP growth, a very important GNP growth. And also they put clearly a target. 2015, we want to be here. This is point B, okay? They said, well, to support this, there's an industrial development. There's a productivity index. We have to create our industrial infrastructure so that we are very, very productive, okay? So they said, well, our aspiration is to be very productive. We have to employ our people. We have to export. We have to watch our taxes. These countries have upper class taxes. So they said, well, how can we manage our taxes well? So a clear aspiration. You see, Brazil is here, the world is here. So they said, this cannot continue like this. We have to be on the top of this. So we want to grow our industrial development faster than the world is doing. So we want to be on top of it. So that was sort of their aspiration, okay? So they said, okay, if this is aspiration, are there cause and effects? How can we understand this properly? So they studied in detail if this aspiration was feasible. For instance, investing in new regulatory frameworks within the country so that people could invest into the country. That would help, this regulatory framework would help expand the investments, the industrial investments in the country. And these industrial investments in the country would then support a stronger positioning of the industry and last but not least, create a sustainable growth. So they studied in detail the aspiration. So I said aspiration is important. Let's understand if the aspiration is feasible. Can we do it? Is it possible? Okay? So that was sort of their thinking. Okay, aspiration is great, but for them was not enough. So they said, well, where are we playing? So we are playing within our country, within our federation. So imagine they are in the total 27 state federations of industries. So every state has a federation and 900 industrial sectors. So the plastic industry, the automotive industry, the electronic industry, the oil and gas industry, every one of these guys have a federation, okay? So their mission and their playground was to bring all these federations together and say, how can we develop this industrial, or the industry within our country? So this is their playground. And you know how difficult this is. Bring all these entrepreneurs together and say, do we have, yes, a common agenda? Do we have the same vision where to go? So that was their playground. From this playground, they developed sort of what they called sort of their winning strategy. So they put together a strategy. We'll come back to this later, so don't say look too much into it at this moment. But the strategy map sort of supported what are core capabilities the country needed to develop the industry. What are from these core capabilities, what are drivers that would leverage the industry? What are, say, clear positionings that the industry should have to, say, fertilize, work together, create synergies? And last but not least, what is the outcome that was expected? And also the designs on a roadmap. It's like for a war you design how you're going to battle, okay? So they designed what we call, you have been exposed to this, a strategy map. So what's the strategy map for our industry? How can we win this battle? What's the strategy to win this battle? They have also, within this strategy, discussed their capabilities. On the bottom of these strategy maps, these roadmaps, you very often put your capabilities. So in detail, they have discussed, well, we have to be good in our industrial infrastructure in this country. So we need energy, we need water, we need, say, financing, we need support and so on. We need availability to all regulatory and institutional, say, policies to support the development of industry. We need education and health for our employees and our management. And we need, for sure, very strong enterprise leadership. So these are sort of the infrastructure for the development of the industry. So they designed sort of very clearly the capabilities for it. So you have here a second example of a strategy put together to support a winning situation. So Lexus was very successful. You know, in 3 years, they were #1 in the US industry. Brazil, as you probably know, during the last, say, 6, 7 years, had an enormous development, not only from the industrial point of view, but from the competitive point of view, but also from the industrial to the social point of view. Lately, it has had some problems for the last, say, year, 12 months, because of the world economy. But it has been also a success story. So it looks like having a good framework for your strategy helps you to understand, design, and then also make it ready to be deployed within the organization. Second important thing when we think about strategy. What should be within the strategy? You know, you saw already some nice strategy maps and so on, but what should be within the strategy for it to be ready to be implemented? Get it as quickly as possible into the veins of the organization. You know, so we need, yes, to make the strategy very, very tangible. Okay, we have to be able to touch it, to understand it, okay? So it looks like this is a big challenge. Many organizations have fluffy objectives, fluffy initiatives, you know, not resources put behind it and so on. So how can we do it very, very operational? So organizations have been challenged in doing so. So coming back to our last example, the CNI. So what did they do? They designed a full, say, strategy with all the details, with all the objectives. So all objectives had descriptions and so on. So when they thought about this, they said, okay, as we already briefly presented a few slides ago, on this light blue, say, diagram on the bottom, they have all the capabilities that we need to develop the sustainable economic development. Okay, so that's the light blue. It's about people, it's about resources, it's about regulatory. On the second level, the more darker blue, they have all the big changes they had to do within the national infrastructure. So it's about energy, it's about imports, it's about development of education, it's about creating financial means to support the industry. It's about creating international links for the industry to export, and so on. So the dark blue is sort of, what are we going to change? Strategy is changing our industrial structure. On the greenish upper level, they presented clearly what were their objectives to support the positioning of the industry. So every of these federations, they had different anxieties. They had different challenges. So the plastic industry, as you can imagine, they were saying, well, you know these guys from oil and gas? They have all these high prices for their raw materials. That's why we are not competitive. So this greenish area is how they could collaborate around creating value throughout the different industrial sectors. Okay? And last but not least, on the top, the outputs. So what were the outputs? So this makes a strategy tangible. You know, clear objectives. What's the roadmap? You know, we will invest here. Then we'll have these outputs in the middle. Then we have the outputs with all the industries collaborating. And then we have the final outputs on the top. So a clear strategy. That's not enough. We need more. Okay? So they have also decided to put behind every one of these objectives to make strategy tangible, clear KPIs. Okay? So they have KPIs for all of their say, objectives. So every KPI here, you cannot read it, I'm sorry. But you have here clear targets also over time for every one of these KPIs. You have also for every KPI a clear description of what is the KPI and so on. So in this case, they saw that on the bottom of that strategy map, it's very important to increase the investment, the private investment in innovation. Okay, so that was a KPI. They said, well, we have to see follow through on this, just as one example. So every one of these KPIs, like this one, has not only a clear description of the KPI, but also targets over time. So what are the targets that were key over time? And also every one of these KPIs had clear initiatives. So it's good to have a clear strategy with clear objectives, with clear measures, but you have to have an initiative. You need a project, you need a program to push it. So strategy gets very tangible the more you have clear, say, also initiatives linked to the strategy. In this case, all the promotion of these investments of the private sector in innovation were critical for them. So they said, let's promote, let's support, let's see what we can do there. So this is how to make strategy very tangible. As I said, it's good to have a good strategy, it's good to make a strategy very tangible, but there's something else that we miss. And we already spoke a little bit about this. We need to learn from strategies. The thing that we see that is a challenge when we think about strategy management is that strategy is a hypothesis. We are here, we want to go there, that's the roadmap to get to point B. But one thing is for sure, it will never happen as we have planned. It will never happen. There will be so many other things happening in the global economy, in new countries, with your competitors, with other organizations, that you will have to learn over time, that you will have to adjust your strategy. So C&I also thinking around this, they said, yes, we need a process to manage our strategy. It's not only good to have one, and very operational one, we need to manage it. So they thought, well, we need to have committees that really help us to understand the map, to consolidate information, do critical analysis on the KPIs, understand what are, say, perhaps issues around these KPIs that are happening. We need another, say, organization that is sort of the thematic advisory of every one of these strategic themes. So the upper, say, industrialists and governmental, say, bureaucrats of our country, they have to help us to monitor performance, they help us to recommend objectives and corrective actions. Okay. So they said, well, we have to have not only an organization that works on the KPIs, the measured objectives, but we also need a thematic advisory group, and we need also the upper, say, federation heads to help us to take the final decisions in the front of our public ministries and even the prime minister and so on. So you see a whole, say, process so that at the end we get to final recommendations and adjustments to our strategy. So if strategy is a hypothesis, we'll have to adjust it. So we need an organization body to work on this. This is in the public sector. In the private sector, it's somehow the same. We have to only be much more agile on this process that you see here. So just an example on this confederation. So they saw, for instance, that the installed capacity of electricity, critical for industrialists, were missing. They were missing capacity. They need more energy. Okay? So it's red. You see, it's red, it's red, it's red. So in one of these meetings here, in these committee meetings, they started to discuss what could be done, what are, say, corrective actions. At the end, what are projects that should be started? What are initiatives to be started to offer the country energy needed for the industrial development? To finish, it looks like, having a good strategy. Making the strategy very operational is key, is important. It looks like managing the strategy is key too. Managing the hypothesis is key, but strategy is about change. Strategy needs leadership to support it. So it looks like leadership is key in having strategy, building up results, building up value for your organizations. Okay? So what we see is that that's probably the most difficult point. Many organizations globally, I have been working a lot in Europe, Germany, Switzerland, and Italy, in the Americas. And they all say, you know, we need strong leadership. It's good to have good content of strategy. If we don't mobilize our organization, it doesn't get nowhere. So we have to think about what are the problems. Politics. Okay, so organizations don't change. They have these beautiful strategies. They don't change because of politics, because of lack of platforms, of how do we execute the strategy. Hey, we have this great strategy. Is the budget of our organization linked to strategy? Do we have resources? Well, that's a secondary issue. No. You know, so how can we guarantee that the platform to execute strategy is in place? So big problem. Sponsorship, the leaders themselves. Strategy will generate crisis because of change in the organization. So we need strong sponsorship. That's very important. And we need incentives. In many cultures, we need incentives. And leaders have to support the organization to have the right incentives, think about the right incentives. So organizations have a big challenge there. It look like those organizations that are supported by leadership, that have implemented, say, a management system, a good platform to implement strategy are very successful. So, as you see on this graph, do you have a formal strategy execution process? Yes. Yes, I do, 54%. No, I don't. Is your organization performing better than other peer groups? Yes, 70%. So it looks like there is a correlation between having a good platform to execute your strategy with good performance. You know, so when we look at this, we think it looks like we need a good platform to be successful. You know, so the point here is leadership has to support the development of these platforms, as you saw on the last slide, so that the organization can, yes, be a winning organization. What are platforms? You probably have seen the slides during yesterday. I think one of my colleagues have presented it to you. It's the Kaplan-Norton platform. It's the strategy execution premium platform. There's a book written around this. So it's a great platform to think, how can we design our strategy, make the strategy very operational, align our organization, make it operational, execute strategy, monitor, review strategy, optimize strategy. You know? So this plan, do, check, act of strategy management, you know, this as a platform looks like key. And this is only possible if leadership supports it. What else is very important for leadership support to be in place? Alignment. Organizations are very functional. I work in finance. You work in HR. The other gentleman works in policies. Okay? These three have to collaborate. They have to work together. Strategy is about using the best your resources. So it looks like alignment is a big issue. One of the biggest issues for leadership to support. You know. So if you see, for instance, this example here of Bahrain. Bahrain has tried also to design a national strategy, deploy a national strategy, and so on. Bahrain has a Ministry of Works. The Ministry of Works, okay, have under it 14 different agencies, directories of agencies. These agencies, they all think on different things. One part of people think about employment, others about training, others are supporting the private industry. They have to collaborate and work together. So the big challenge for the minister, just as an example, is how to bring these agencies to work together. So big challenge for leadership. Another example, the US President George Bush, several years ago, he said, well, my government is about, say, creating value to citizens. We are focused on citizens. We have to create value to citizens. It's not about bureaucracy. So he aligned all the agencies that he has and said, which of these agencies are aligned to our national strategy and how do they collaborate among each other? Okay. So a big drive of his Secretary of State and all his, say, secretaries was to drive say, a common agenda throughout the US government during those days. So you see, the big challenge organizations have here two examples of the public sector to drive alignment, okay? The other important challenge, we also see that leadership is key. You know, drive alignment, leadership is key, is to do these, what we said, review meetings. Review meetings are the moment where we come out together to look at our strategy and see, are we getting where we want? So that's the moment very often of rethinking, of crisis. If leadership is not in front of it, it won't happen. So it looks like test and adapt. The strategy review meeting is another very important issue where organizations should work very hand in hand with leadership. So just to finish the last slides here, I mean, leadership is supporting the test and adapting. What does this mean? Here, a Korean example of the Korean customer service. The output here in 5 years, what that the Korean customs could say develop a decrease of all illegal drugs, you know, of the business, you know, of illegal drugs. This was possible because the upper leadership of the organization, of the customs, they worked very strongly on strategies to recognize the customs agents, to get strong satisfaction of the employees within the customs area. So they managed this very clearly. They managed also very clearly how they could work better the processes within the customs agencies. They also managed very clearly all the satisfaction of their external customers, all the import duties and so on. So what I want to say here is leading strategy execution has to do to work on these cause and effects, to work on these review meetings through these cause and effects and understand what do we miss to reach our top goal, or say challenge of our organization to increase the crackdown on illegal drugs, for instance, in South Korea, or increase our tax collection that are linked to, say, customs and duties. Okay, so leadership is key. So I'm looking at you and saying, well, leadership is one important and probably the most important topic in executing, in creating value through your organization. I look at this audience here and I look at you because you are in the front seat. Okay, you are the leaders of your organization. So it's your responsibility to bring strategy into the organization, into the veins, and to a successful organization. Okay. So this is my short presentation to you this morning. Just recapping quickly, we need to understand and have a good strategy. We have to drive the strategy for success, make it very operational. We have to guarantee that we are always thinking of a strategy as a hypothesis that have to be optimized over time. And last but not least, look at you, we have to lead the strategy. We have to be in front of it. We have to dominate the strategy execution as leaders of your organizations. If we have a few moments more, I'm ready to accept any questions you might have on leading, implementing, driving strategy to results.
Thank you very much, Matthias, for this wonderful presentation and valuable information you provided. Now we'll take a Q&A session. So if you have a question, just raise your hand and we will provide you with mic.
Yes, please.
Thank you very much for your excellent presentation. And I just have like a comment. The biggest challenge for the organizations is not how to design a strategy, because it's easy to design even a wonderful strategy, but the biggest challenge is the implementation.
Yeah.
And this is where, I mean, most companies fail, because to my knowledge, about 75% of the organizations do have excellent strategies designed, but less than 40% would implement correctly their their strategy. So the challenge is how to find a way to implement correctly that strategy. So, and I would suggest, I mean, a tool which is very worldwide known, and that also sum up all the things that you mentioned and how to implement the strategy is the Balanced Scorecard program.
Yeah.
Because this Balanced Scorecard program, I mean, would make the strategy become true. And because it translates the strategy into set of objectives, activity objectives and outcome objectives. And those objectives should have measures. And those measures, from these measures, we can set targets, and we do a periodic review. And on these targets, whether we achieve those targets, the most important thing is the periodic review and taking actions upon what happened.
Yeah.
And this is like a very, very, very useful tool. If we use it, that we can translate the strategy and make the strategy happen, become true.
Yeah.
And that's why I just wanted to,
It's clear. It's clear. I thank you so much for your explaining and presenting this. Strategy management is the success of many strategies. So many strategies fail because management of it, the implementation is not done well. So what you mentioned, having a framework, a platform for it, objectives, measures, KPIs, and also, very important, the initiatives, the projects, linked to strategy that are really executed over time is key. So there are many books to be read around this, many case studies, if you wish. Strategy management, execution premium from Kaplan and Norton, say good references for how to execute well strategies. I put here my last slide, just if you have interest. This is my commercial now, for one moment. We are doing in Riyadh a strategy management certification program with best practices around strategy implementation at the end of May. So for those that want to increase even more their proficiency in strategy management, it's a program that will be held here in Riyadh by the end of May. But this is a key issue. We see organizations in Europe, in the US, in the Americas, in Asia-Pac. They are all still struggling a lot, with good strategies in hand to make them happen, to bring them to the organization.
Yeah, okay? The challenge is not to design a good strategy, but to implement it well. This is the challenge. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was the last question. Huh? Thank you. Thank you for your patience.